In this month's episode of Table Tennis Talk, there's not much to talk about because we're all social distancing. Everything table tennis has been canceled and postponed, so we dig deep into Joey's illustrious career in table tennis, from the wild and windy streets of Brazil to the dangerous dunes of Egypt. And here's the obligatory content warning for anyone who doesn't like spiders. When the wind starts blowing, just skip the next 5 minutes or so. Hey everyone, and thanks for joining us for another weird episode of Table Tennis Talk. We are here with you remotely. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Lewis, and across town I got Joey Cochran.
Hey
Joey.
everybody. Hey Ryan, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing in this age of coronavirus?
I'd say pretty good overall. I think that we don't have any kids to take care of or anything, so just kind of laying back, laying low, and we're doing all right.
That's a blessing. I hear kids are kind of the hardest part right now.
Yeah,
if you do have kids,
because they're all staying home from school, and it's just They all want to be outside playing with their friends, and everything's closed. So it's been rough, I think, especially for those families.
We have not been able to take a walk. Like usually we walk our dog at least like once a day, and it's just like there's so many people and children and just everyone on the sidewalks and at the park.
Oh man.
I mean, there's no chance that we can like take a walk and not have people like walking right up to us and stuff.
Oh wow. I feel like our neighborhood's been pretty, we don't even have any pets, but our neighborhood's been pretty dead. Like we go on a walk pretty much every day, and we might see one other person, which is nice. Like just wave from across the street kind of thing. But it's been good for us.
That's cool. So we're going to have a little bit of a different format than usual. Normally we have our standard format, but considering that there's not much tournament there's zero tournament information to report on. Really
things just no weird news at all. It seems like hardly at all anyway. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it's very different. So we're going to have a little bit of a different format. We're going to start and just talk about how we're individually coping and dealing with kind of self-isolation, coronavirus, and also some personal recommendations for things that we've been doing and watching and playing since we've been self-isolating. I know for us, we haven't left the house in almost a month now.
Holy cow.
I mean, I guess we have. We've gone for drives and stuff, but like we haven't really. So anyways, you want to start us off, Joey, with things you're doing and how you're coping?
Yeah, so the first thing that it's been taking up most of my time so I'm working from home. I'm one of the lucky people that I'm able to do that. So when I'm not working, I finally put together my YouTube channel. It's Table Tennis Junkie. So check it out. I've been putting tutorial videos. Most of the videos that I've posted are just like serving videos. I put up my matches from the Olympics like a month ago, but since we're all kind of self-isolating, I figured that's probably the best way to go right now is just putting up the serving videos. So check them out. I'm all cut up on Tiger King. Actually today, I think a new episode, like a bonus episode came out. So Tiger King has been an interesting one to watch. I've been playing a lot of board games with my wife, and a couple of family members and close friends have come over a few times. Clank, that's one that you introduced me to. Yeah, it's really fun.
Have you been playing that with your wife or with a larger group?
With my wife, and then a couple other guys. Cool. One of our friends and his wife also comes over, so it's just like the four of us will play. Hogwarts, A Battle for Hogwarts, or Harry Potter, A Battle for Hogwarts it's a fun one. That was like what really got me started, like maybe 6-7 months ago into board games. It's really fun. It's a co-op game. A couple other ones, Arboretum, which is another one you showed me, And then
Yeah.
Fox in the Forest is another one I play with my wife. It's just a 2-player game.
Nice.
But yeah, it's been good. Board games, TV, my YouTube channel, and then I kind of hurt my shoulder a while back, and I've just kind of been nursing it back to health. So the quarantine for that has been good.
Yeah.
But I'm confident that it'll be over soon. I mean, most states are reducing new cases, or they're seeing reduction in new cases. So hopefully we're out back at it again soon. But,
Yeah.
yeah. What about you? What have you been up to? What are your tips for staying busy during these times?
Yeah, it's tough. We've been self-isolating even more than you guys, because we haven't had anyone over in probably about 4 weeks now, I think, since the last person came over. And around that same time, I pulled something in my groin muscles. And so the only real, like, so if I sit for too long, like if I sit for like 30 minutes, it'll start hurting.
Jeez.
And if I stand for 30 minutes, it'll start hurting. So I can walk and it feels okay. And I can lay like completely flat and it feels okay. And
Man.
so like I've been laying on the couch so much that like some days like the back of my head will start hurting because I'm just laying there for so long. It's been like horrible. It's like the worst injury I've ever had. And so, I mean, in a way, it's the perfect time to do it because I can't really go out and do anything anyways. So, but also it's the worst time because when you're stuck in the house all day, it would be nice to be able to go outside and do a walk or do something physical to kind of get your mind off it. And I've kind of been stuck here. So
yeah, that's perfect timing for it. So
yeah. So I've been watching TV. I definitely caught Tiger King. I think we binged it all in one evening. It's kind of one of those things where you just can't stop. It's just like you just have to get to the end of this crazy thing. And we also I don't know if I mentioned it on the show on the podcast before, but we are big fans of Terrace House, which is this Japanese reality TV show, and it's not like Real World where it's like bombastic and like people get in fights. It's very chill, and it's like these very subtle, soft kind of relationships, and it's just like it's the nicest. It's like comfort food, basically, comfort food television. And they actually just dropped a new part. They drop the episodes in portions. So they just dropped part 3 like a few days ago. And so we've been watching through that, and it came at a great time because it's like, oh, this is exactly what we need. This kind of chill show, which is engaging and interesting, but not stressful. And then we've also been watching, have you ever seen The Challenge on MTV?
No, I haven't.
It's like a reality TV show, but they actually do these like, they call them challenges, these like competition things that are like genuinely difficult to do. Like you have to be smart and strong and resourceful. And I don't know, we got hooked on it, and I just found out that you can get all of the old seasons on Amazon for like $10 a season. So we've been.
Are they digital, or do they have to mail them to you?
Digital, yeah, totally.
Oh,
digital.
That's good. Yeah, I ordered a few things from Amazon, and it's like, we'll get it to you in 4 weeks or whatever. It's like, well, thanks a lot. I mean,
for real.
When the quarantine's over, I don't really care about these things anymore. But whatever.
Right. Yeah, and also being on my back, video games have been a big help to keep me there. Persona 5 R just came out, which is a Japanese role-playing game where you play as a Japanese high school student who has like kind of like magic powers. I love Persona games, and so this one, and I didn't play too much of Persona 5 when it first came out. This is like a re-release with some extra stuff, and so I played that. And then yesterday, Final Fantasy VII Remake got delivered.
Yeah.
Did you play it yet?
No, but I'm definitely gonna get it. I haven't gotten it yet.
You played the original, right?
Yeah, I played the original a ton, and yeah, it's one of my favorite games.
Dude, it is like it is so much. Like I mean, I was sitting there, I played about 5 hours, and just every like 5 minutes or so, I stopped, and I was just like, I can't believe this. I can't believe this game is like exists. And because one of the things is all the visuals, all the story is like similar, but it's just so much more. And then the music is what really hits you, because you know all those songs, right? And they basically remake the songs, but make them even better. Oh man, that I'm really into that. You should get that, man. That'll keep you at home for a while. And then the last thing, I'm sorry, this has been going on for way too long.
That's all good.
Board games too. I've been with some of the guys that you played with. We have a Gloomhaven group, and we have been doing Gloomhaven on Tabletop Simulator, which is this online program which simulates a tabletop environment. You can play board games. Gloomhaven is an actual physical board game, and then this is like the digital representation. So we've been doing that every other week. And then I've been playing a lot of single player board games. So God of War, the card game, is a single player game. You can play with other people, but it also has a single player variant. And so that's been fun. And this other game, Tainted Grail, has been really, really fun. Kind of like they're almost like you're playing a video game, but you've actually got components and stuff that you're messing with. So that's been nice.
That's cool. My brother's been asking me about Gloomhaven. When are we going to play? When are we going to play? And
yeah,
I haven't done it yet. So I'm actually going to see him today. So I'm sure he's going to ask. But well, I got to get on it. That's a good game.
Tabletop Simulator is a great way to do it, because then you can do it remotely. You don't have to, get out of your pajamas, and you can still play a board game. Okay, let's move on to there is some news. So I didn't put it on our list here, but Dignix 09C came out.
So I actually got to try it, the 09C one.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm still teaching a couple of my students, and one of them showed up with the 09C and the Revoldia, the brand new racket and rubber, which was pretty cool. It was interesting to try it. My first impressions are that it's like very light. He has short pips on the back end.
Okay,
so it's a little different than like the weight of it will be a little bit different, like a little lighter because of those pips. But
sure.
It felt really light, and is definitely slower than the regular Dignix 05, but also stickier. So yeah, pretty interesting. I didn't want to loop too much with it because of my shoulder. I didn't want to re-injure it, but
sure,
I can see why people are using it for sure. It's not as sticky as like a Hurricane, but it's definitely stickier than the 05.
Cool.
Or 64.
Could you feel the difference in the blade with the nanofiber stuff?
Yeah. So it's hard to say, right? Because I'm changing from my Harimoto and 05 and Harimoto, like on my forehand and 64 and backhand, to a different racket and different rubber. So it's hard to say, like, compare the two exactly. It's definitely slower and lighter though. So. And I'm not sure if it's from like just the rubber or the racket, or maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I actually would like to try the 09C on my racket just to like compare it. Like,
sure.
Because I have my spare racket, and then I could just put it on and just like have a proper comparison between the two. Yeah. So I might actually do that.
I've been really thinking about getting it, but it's just so hard when you're at home. And I mean, I haven't actually picked up a racket since probably our last lesson, which was months ago. And I don't know. My table's actually stood up right now. I'm thinking about putting it down so I can start practicing some serving and,
Yeah, if you're not really playing, I wouldn't get it until you're kind of back into it, because especially with sticky rubbers, they'll die much quicker than a normal rubber because it just collects
okay.
dust and they're harder to clean.
Yeah.
So if you're not playing consistently, I would recommend not getting it until you're playing more consistently.
Cool. So more news. ITTF has canceled and pushed things out even farther. So right now the World Championships, which they were trying to target for June this year, are they're hoping will happen in September, October of this year. They haven't set an exact date. The Olympics was moved to next year, which is a big deal.
Yeah. Probably a good thing. I mean, let's just push it out, make sure that everyone's healthy and you can have some good crowds. And yeah, if you don't have any spectators, I would assume that they would lose a fortune on the Olympics. Yeah. So it would
also just be weird not having people.
Yeah, totally. And people want to see it. It's not just like a money thing. Like, people want to go, and if you can't go, they're like, that sucks, So it'll be kind of weird. So like, some of the older athletes, they have to stay in shape for a whole nother year that might have been going. And then I remember reading a story. I think she was from like Turkey or something. There was a table tennis player, a girl, who made the Olympic team, and she was like one of the youngest, if not the youngest, Olympian ever. She was like 12 or 13 or something. But now she's going to be a year older. So I was like, I wonder if she's still going to be the youngest. But she qualified. So
yeah. Her entry into the Guinness Book of World Records might have been
ruined.
Ruined for this. ITTF announced that the world rankings, they have frozen them after April, which I thought was interesting. So
probably a good thing because they don't have any tournaments. So
yeah, but I think isn't there like a time? Like if they weren't frozen, isn't there like a time element to the ratings that would have potentially changed them as nobody's playing?
Yeah. So your tournament, so they take your 5 best results throughout the year. It's a rolling year, and if you place first in a tournament, then that those first place points are valid for 1 calendar year.
Got it. Yeah.
So, or 1 rolling year, whatever it is. So if it's frozen, it'll just extend those timelines. So it makes sense the way that the world rankings work, because you can't renew any rankings with more results because all the tournaments are canceled or moved.
Yeah. The last thing isn't really news, but I wanted to mention to people that most local table tennis clubs are closed right now, and so even if they maybe still have dues money coming in, they don't have money coming in from selling merch and running events. And so you might want to check in, if you haven't, with your local club and see if they're accepting donations or something to kind of keep them afloat as they're closed. I know the Salt Lake Club is closed, they say, until the middle of April, but I can't imagine them opening anytime soon. So they'll probably be closed at least a couple other months. And they're taking donations basically so they can continue to pay rent right now. Because I mean, the worst, when you think about it, you're not going to the club right now, so why should you pay? But the whole point is, once we kind of get beyond this, you probably want your local club to still be there and still, have tables and be around. And unfortunately, kind of the only way that they can do that is if people support them, even though they're not going. So
yeah, I think I've seen several GoFundMe pages for clubs around the country, because I mean, everyone's struggling right now, right? But like, I think sporting centers and ping pong clubs in general are really hurting, because ping pong doesn't really make any money anyways. It's almost like a nonprofit. So going a month without any income coming in, it's like, how do you manage to keep paying rent?
Yeah.
So
for sure. Yeah. So check in with your club and make sure to support them.
Right.
Okay. So I thought that, so one thing that we haven't really been able to do in maybe as much detail as I've always wanted is to figure out, or I guess hear your story, Joey, your story of your career.
Okay.
I feel like there's a lot of things that even I don't know. I mean, like, it's like as we would do lessons, you would like give me little tidbits of like, oh yeah, when I was overseas training or when I did this, and I'm just like, someday I want to like take you out to dinner and get the full story, but for some reason we never have. So this is my chance to kind of get the full story from you, and not when I'm like trying to recover after looping for a few minutes.
Yeah.
So let's just start off and start at the beginning. When you started playing, why you started playing, and kind of what the early days of, getting involved with this sport was like.
Sure. So it all kind of started when I was, it all started. So it started when I was 5, when my mom got my dad a ping pong table for his birthday or for Christmas or something. My dad liked to play growing up. I have 2 brothers that play, and we got a table at the house and we just started playing. Pretty soon after that, my dad found a ping pong club in South Bend. So I grew up in South Bend, Indiana. So he looked it up on the internet or on the newspaper or something. Saw that there's a ping pong club in the area.
Definitely not the internet.
Yeah, probably not the internet.
Unless you worked at DARPA.
Yeah, we didn't have internet for sure. So yeah, I think so. Every week, the local ping pong club, there was like a league night, and they would post the results from the league in the newspaper. So I think that's probably how we found it. But yeah, so we started going to the club. Soon after, Danny C. Miller, he was the men's team coach. He moved from Pittsburgh to Indiana, and he started the junior program there in Indiana. And I was still too young. The age requirement was you had to be at least 6. So I had to stay home and just kind of play with my family. And then when I turned 6, then I joined the junior team. And the junior team was pretty big. I think they had maybe 20 to 30 kids or more. Yeah. And there were a couple that were really good. And yeah, so I joined that, and I was on like the junior varsity. And then I played a lot with my brothers, with my 2 brothers and my dad at home. And pretty much every day we were playing ping pong, either at home or at the club. I started doing the league night on Thursdays. And then when I was 6, I played in my first tournament in Minnesota, which was pretty cool. Got to travel. It's like a 10-hour car drive to Minnesota. And I played and I lost every single match. Well, I lost all my games. What?
Were your brothers in the same program?
Yeah, so all three boys were in the program together.
And did they play that same tournament?
Yeah, yep.
Cool.
Yeah. So our whole family went. And it kind of just became like a family thing. We would travel around to different tournaments, and we made friends with the people on the junior team, and we would travel together and carpool, and it was pretty fun. So there were all kinds of camps and clinics and things that we would go to, and all the tournaments and stuff, and pretty much all around the Midwest. We'd travel everywhere. And I always like to travel. It's like I love traveling.
What's the time frame? Is this the early 90s?
Mid 90s.
Mid 90s. Okay.
Yeah. So then when I was 8, I got my first sponsorship from Bada. Wow. Who I remember they sent me a contract as an 8-year-old. I think my parents must have signed it. And every day at the club, I was like, "Hey, did I get anything from Bada yet?" I would always ask my coach. And then like the one day that I didn't ask, he's like, "Aren't you going to ask?" And there was like a big box of like shirts and paddles and stuff. And I was stoked. I mean, getting a bunch of free ping pong gear from Banda, and they were pretty good.
Why did they want to sponsor you?
Well, I was pretty good. I think I was. So I went to Junior Olympics a few times, and I think I won the Junior Olympics.
Okay, hold on. We're skipping ahead. Okay, so you're 6 years old. You lose all of your tournaments, and then somehow you get a sponsorship. There's things missing here.
Yeah. So when I look back at it, I feel like I didn't improve very quickly. But when I was 8 and 9 and 10, and I was either like the number 1 or the number 2 junior, like under 10-year-old kid in the country. So I looking back, I must have been improving pretty quickly and doing pretty well. But I remember always struggling to like grasp things. But maybe like comparing them to my brothers who were a couple years older than me, then I mean they were always better than me. So I think for my age, I was doing really well.
Okay.
Yeah.
How often did you train back then?
Probably 5 times a week.
Dang.
Yeah, and 3 hours at a time. So it was pretty much
just like after school.
Yeah, it was 5 to 8 or 5:30 to 8:30.
Okay.
Yeah. So after work.
Did the whole group do that?
Yeah, it was all group lessons. Yeah.
Man.
I never really took any private lessons from Danny or anybody until I was probably 20.
Wow.
So it was all group sessions.
About how often were you doing tournaments then?
So it varied. When I was young, it was maybe 5 to 10 tournaments a year, which is really not enough. So once I was probably 16 or 17 was when I started playing like 20 to 30. I tried to do one every other week was my goal, and I hit 25 a couple of times, but I never did 26, which would have been once every other week. There were a few weekends where I could have done 2 tournaments because they were like the open singles was on Saturday for one tournament and the open singles was on Sunday for the same weekend. And I was like, I could travel from Columbus to Erie and play and like try to work it out, but I never did. And I kind of wish I did just so I hit that 26 mark, but I never did. I hit 25 a few times, but yeah, early on it was just like 5 to 10 tournaments a year, which is okay. But if you really want to be the best, you got to play a lot more often and get that match experience.
Yeah.
So,
okay. So Junior Olympics, you went when you were 8?
I think, I don't remember when the first time I went was, but I want to say probably 7 was when I went the first time.
How are you even like, considered? Like, how did that whole, do you remember how that process went?
So the Junior Olympics is it's not like the normal Olympics. It's, anyone can really go.
Okay.
It's more like nationals. It's just like a U.S. thing. Like you don't have to be a U.S. citizen, but it's mostly U.S. citizens. And it's basically just age events. So you have like the 10 and under, the 12 and under, the 14 and under, the 16 and under, the 18 and under, and the under 21 probably.
Okay.
But it's really fun because you play like the top juniors from all around the U.S. and Canada even. And it was good so a lot of tournaments you play adults as a little kid, and it's hard to, I think it's hard on everybody. I don't dislike it, but it's definitely hard for adults to play kids, and it's also hard for kids to play adults because it's just like a different style, and a lot of like older guys have junky rubber and they're just relying on tricks where the kids are trying to do the proper strokes and techniques. And when you have kids playing kids, it's a lot more fun because they're both trying for the same thing. Yep. And they both want to win really bad, and they have proper strokes. There's no like weird things going on. It's just a very clean game. So Junior Olympics was always pretty fun because you're just playing kids in your own age group. And a lot of times you make friends or you make enemies. And you see them over and over again, like at nationals
Yeah.
and Junior Olympics and team tryouts and other events like that. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, so you went to Junior Olympics. Did you win when you were 7?
I think the first time I don't remember when the first time I won it, but I want to say probably around 8, because that's when I got my first sponsorships, maybe 9. But yeah, I was definitely showing promise at that time, just because I mean I was winning a lot more by when I was 8 than when I was 6, when I wasn't really winning anything ever. So
sure.
Yeah.
What was it like in school? Because I mean, were you like the ping pong kid in school, or did anybody even know that you were like a big deal? I guess.
So yeah, all my friends knew I played ping pong. I was actually homeschooled though, so most of top athletes in actually a lot of sports, most sports are actually homeschooled. It's pretty common. I wouldn't say most, but a higher percentage of top athletes are homeschooled. It allows you to train more. It allows you to travel more. So I was actually homeschooled. So my dad taught me. He was a college professor, so his hours are a little bit different than like a normal 9-to-5 job.
Sure.
And yeah, so it allowed us to travel more. It allowed us to train more, and play more ping pong.
Wow.
Yeah. But like I was still in a lot of groups. Like my neighborhood had a lot of kids in it, so I was always outside playing hockey and playing football and playing soccer. And I didn't really love baseball, but I played baseball a little bit and capture the flag. And like there were tons of kids in our neighborhood. So
cool.
I think that was really good. And they all knew I played ping pong. I was the ping pong kid with everyone. And then I was also in like Boy Scouts and other I was on a football team, so I played other sports.
Cool.
But yeah, I think one of the biggest, the hardest things for homeschoolers is they never really get that social side of things.
Right.
Where I was kind of lucky where I had a ton of kids in the neighborhood where like we weren't at school together, but we still hung out and played basically every day between when after school ended, they got home, and then my practice started at like 5:30. So I got like a couple hours of football time or soccer or whatever.
Socialization.
Yeah, which was good. And it was really good for ping pong too. Just like that cross training. I'm always running around, riding bikes or doing whatever. So yeah, it was good.
That's cool. Okay, so you're winning at the Junior Olympics. You've got a Bada scholarship.
Sponsorship.
Let's start from there. What happened after that?
So I think that you have, by the time I was 9 or 10, for my age group, I was one of the top juniors. And then same for 12 and under, 14 and under. And then when you get to the 16 and under, that's for the cadet team. And when you're on the cadet team, that's for the U.S. team. And you get to travel quite a bit, depending on what year it is, I guess, and also where you finish in the top in the country. Mm-hmm. So for the U.S. team is really where you want to be. And I think when I was either 13 or 14 is when I made the cadet team for the first time, which allowed me to go to the U.S. team training camps. And I went to a few of them, mostly in Florida. There were a few in other places around the country. And also, if you're on the team, then they also pay your way for the U.S. Open and a couple of other tournaments, which is really good because those are expensive tournaments. Going to the U.S. Open, it's going to cost you minimum probably $1,000, maybe more like $2,000. Yeah. So when you make the U.S. team, they pay for your entry, your hotel, your travel, and your food, which is great. Wow. And then the reason why they did that was because they would have they'd have a week-long training camp before the U.S. Open, and then you play the U.S. Open, and then they have another either 1 or 2 weeks training camp after the U.S. Open. So you're gone for a month, but you get lots of really good training in. You get to work with some of the national level coaches. You're training with other people, the other top juniors. So usually they would send the cadet boys, so 16 and under, the cadet girls, 16 and under, and then the junior boys and the junior girls, which is 18 and under. So, and then the men's and women's team, they did something different usually, but so it was good to just kind of be a part of that group of like top level juniors and top level cadets, and be training and playing in tournaments, big tournaments. So I did that. I think the first time I was probably 14 when that happened the first time, maybe 13. And the way that it worked was stupid. It was entirely based off of rating, which everyone knows that the rating system in the US is totally broken and just like, it's so arbitrary. You can have a high rating and not be very good. You can have a low rating and be really good. And it changes every single tournament you play. It changes. And sometimes it changes drastically. So the way they did it was if they took the 4 highest rated kids on 16 and under, and then if you're 15, you get 50 bonus points. And if you're 14, you get 100 bonus points. If you're 13, you get 150 bonus points.
Oh, okay.
And like juniors are gaining more than 50 points per year. So like that's a stupid way to do it anyways. But it just, and the other thing is like for each training camp throughout the year, they would redraw it. So you had to have a consistently high rating throughout the year. So you might go to one camp, but then you'd miss the next camp because you lost a match or something. And it's like, it puts a lot of pressure on you to win every single match and do really well. And then if you have a high rating, then juniors just stop playing tournaments, which is like, it's counter, like it doesn't help you improve. So people just sit on their ratings so they'd get their paid training camps and paid tournaments and stuff. Very bad system to do it. Yeah. They ended up changing it, I think, when I was 15. Okay. They had an actual team tryouts, which was a much, much better way to do it. So at nationals at the end of the year in December, they would select the team for the following year. And that was really good. And they would take the top 4 players for each category. And that would be the US team for the next year, which was just a really a way better way to do it. Yeah. Cool. So I think when I was 15, I made the US team. I qualified in the top 4, and I did that again when I was 16. And I got to travel quite a bit, mostly within the US and Canada at that time. So every year it's different. Some years you go overseas, some years you stay home. It just depends on the budgets. So I think in one of our previous episodes, Dan Seemiller Jr. was on as he was being interviewed, and he made the U.S. junior team. But that year, they only went on one trip, and it was to Columbus, Ohio, I think. Which, I mean, that's cool. But so he kind of got screwed a little bit on that, which was pretty unfortunate. And I think during those first few years of making the cadet team were off years where there was more than just that one trip, but it was all within like the North America. So then I think when I was 16, actually, there was one trip I got to go on. We went to Brazil.
Oh, cool.
Which is pretty awesome. It was definitely an experience. The day before we left, I was riding my bike and I was in a really bad bicycle accident where I hit my head. And I had like a bad injuries.
Oh no.
Like massive headaches, like dizziness, for sure, a concussion, but I didn't want to go to the doctor because I was like, this is my first big trip to go out of the country. And I was like, I'm not going to go to the doctor and have him tell me I can't fly. Like that's not going to happen. So I didn't do anything about it. And I went on this trip, and my arm was like, I still have these pretty big scars on my arm from it. Cause I got really beat up from this accident. And so we went to Brazil, which was pretty interesting. All my trips before that, this is like the worst trip ever, but all of the trips before that, they give you like $30 per day for like a food stipend. for this trip, they didn't give us any money for it. And
What?
I didn't bring any money. So I had no money. I had like $10 for like a 10-day trip. So I was like having to borrow money from my friends and stuff. And I didn't have like a credit card as a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I was like, had like my arm was all screwed up. I had this massive headache the whole time. And I was thinking like Brazil, it's probably going to be pretty warm. It was freezing cold. And I only brought like shorts and t-shirts and stuff, super cold. Anyway, so it's just like I was just miserable the whole time, but
yeah,
kind of like the more fun story from that is the playing hall. It had these walls, and then the ceiling kind of like went over, but it didn't connect to the wall. It was like almost like a shed, but like this huge auditorium, but like the walls didn't connect to the roof. So as we're playing, there's like, you can see like these bugs and like these massive spider webs up near the lights and stuff, just because these bugs and birds and stuff will kind of come in.
Yeah.
And then this storm kind of came in, and like, it was weird. I don't know if you've ever been like near a tornado, but it like the pressure just like, it like messes with your ears kind of. So it kind of felt like that, where like there's like the pressure in the building kind of went away. And then all of a sudden, like this big wind came, and these like locusts, like these bugs came and just like swarmed. They weren't like mosquitoes, but they were like kind of like mosquito-ish, maybe bigger, but these bugs came in and just like filled this gym. And like you couldn't breathe. Like it was, you breathe and you would suck in bugs, like just just like completely clouded this entire auditorium. And like they had to evacuate the building because these bugs came in and just like swarmed in, like covered, like you couldn't even see across the gym, like everywhere. And they couldn't figure out how to get out. They just like got blown in, and they were stuck. So they had to like not cancel, but like postpone the tournament because like until these bugs got out of the building. And what happened was they were getting caught in these giant spider webs up top, and these big fat like tarantulas were falling from the ceiling. Like once they reopened, it was so crazy and like disgusting, and yeah, just pretty wild. And then after they started, they were like still like every now and then like splat, like these big spiders falling from the ceiling.
Oh man.
And then, but it was still windy. Like, and before the big gusts came in, it was pretty windy, and like barriers were getting blown over, and scoreboard, like the wooden stands, like where the wind was strong enough to like blow these stands over. And like, it's like, I remember the one time this Russian kid, he threw the ball up to serve, and he had this high toss serve, and it blew like 4 courts over. Like, just like, what are you supposed to do? Like this is before they postponed it. It's like, well, what, like, is that a fault? Like, it's not my fault that there's massive wind in here.
Yeah.
So they ended up postponing it until like the storm turned down and like the bugs went away, but it was pretty wild.
Wow. That sounds horrible.
Yeah. It was, yeah.
That's the environment that Hugo Calderano grew up in. So that's why he's so good, because, you know, he was playing through bugs and wind and tarantulas and.
Yeah. I don't know what kind of spiders they were. They were like blue. And the first one that came down, I remember it didn't look real, and it fell, and it was unconscious. When it hit the ground, it wasn't moving. It was just like it looked like one of those play rubbery spider things. So we were like picking it up and like putting it on people. And then this one time, Trevor, which we'll talk about later, he was on the junior team with me. He picked it up, and he put it on somebody, and as he's like picking it up, I saw its legs like contract around his wrist. Like he was holding it, and it like went around his wrist, like these big long legs, and he didn't see it. And I was like, dude, it's alive. And no one saw it. I was the only one who saw it. And I was like, it's alive. And then he went and put it on somebody, and then like eventually somebody like kicked it, and it like broke open, like it like splattered when someone kicked it. And that's when like, oh, it actually is alive. Anyway,
man, we're gonna have to put a content warning on this episode.
Yeah,
for people who don't People who can't handle, I can't handle spiders. I'm glad. Let's move on.
Okay, let's move on. Yeah. So
anymore.
yeah, I think the next year, I was 17, and one year I didn't make the team. I forget which year it was, but when I was 18, I made the team again. One of the years I went to Egypt. This is another kind of a cool story. So
Yeah.
We're in Egypt. This is for the Junior World Championships, and
Cool.
we're kind of just locked down in our rooms. Not really like it's not the safest place to be. So they're just like, if you're not playing in the tournament, just stay in your rooms. Like, don't really do anything. Well, so backing up a little bit, right before the tournament, like the week before, the junior team coach backed out. Like, I don't know if he was sick or if he didn't want to go, but they had to find another coach to like chaperone us and to go. So they picked like an old U.S. men's team coach, this Iranian guy named Houshang Bazorgzada. He's an awesome guy, and he was so much fun to have in Egypt. He took us out, and we were like, he would like schedule things for us to do. So he took us to the pyramids, which was awesome.
Wow.
And when we got there, so it was me, John, and Trevor, and then a Latvian guy named Mattis. And as we get out, there's all kinds of like peddlers and whatever trying to sell you stuff. And this one guy's like, "Hey, I want to take your picture." And this is before the revolution, so things were different then. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "I'll take your picture." And so Trevor, he grabs John's camera and gives it to this guy. And immediately the guy just books it. He takes off. So it's like, oh my gosh. So we start chasing him, and he's running away, and I'm leading the pack as far as chasing him. And he runs behind this like steel wall with these gates on it that you can't see through. So I chase him through there, and as soon as I go through, there's like 10 guys on the other side, and they grab me.
What?
And they're like, and as we run through one by one, the four of us, they grab us, and they're like holding us, like arms around us, holding us. And they put us on these camels, and we're like, what the heck is going off? Like, get us off these camels. There's like a whole bunch of them. We're way outnumbered.
Yeah.
And we just like start riding out into this desert, and we're behind this wall. So like no one can really see us. And so we're just riding out, and there's these dunes kind of on our right side with like these tents, and you can see people are kind of living over there, not super far away. People are kind of living over there, and where there's this big drop like dune that we're riding towards, and John and I are on this camel together, and Mattis and Trevor are on the other camel. And John and I are talking. We're like, "Hey, we need to jump off and run. Like, we're like, if we get over to like past that dune, then even if someone comes across like through this gate, they're not going to see us. Like, we got to make our way back somehow." So we're like yelling, like constantly throughout this whole journey, we're like yelling at the guys, like, "Give us our camera back, like get us off these camels, let us go." And as we're approaching this dune, right at the peak of it, they stop. And they say, like, "Give us your money." They're basically robbing us. So, we lie to them. We came in on a bus. We're like, we left our money in the bus. We don't have any money. And they start like yelling at us and screaming at each other. And like, there's a whole bunch of them. And they're just like, there's just like a lot of yelling going on in Arabic or whatever they're speaking. So then eventually John was like, "We want to take a picture of you." And the guy was like, "Of me?" Like the main guy that took the camera. "Of me?" And he's like, "Yeah, I want to take a picture of you." And the guy was like blown away that anyone would want to take his picture. So he gave him the camera back. And as soon as he did, John jumped and started running. And I was like, "John, like, you could have warned me." So, so he jumped off this camel and just he booked it. And so immediately I jump off and start running. And then Trevor and the Latvian guy, Mattis, also jump off and start running back. And they were a little bit slower, like later, like they didn't know what was going on either. So they we're running and they're kind of in the back, and there's like lots of yelling, and the people in these tents start like running out towards us. So they're like coming from our left now and from behind us. And eventually they catch Mattis and Trevor. And Mattis, he has money. We all have money. He reaches in his pocket full of all these like Egyptian coins, and like probably 2 feet away, like they're right next to each other, he throws at full force this handful of change right in this guy's face. And like, yeah. And then it kind of just like all this money scatters around in the sand because we're out in the desert. Yeah. And all these people just like converge on this money in the sand. And it's like, that's really the reason why we got away. Like we just ran all the way back. And they were trying to collect this money in the sand, these coins. And we talked to the security guards, and they were just like, they didn't care. They didn't want to listen to us. So like, these guys just tried to kidnap us and rob us. And like, there's these police, and they just like blew us off completely. So it was kind of frustrating, but we got away, which was the main thing. Yeah. But pretty wild experience.
That's crazy. Was this, did you guys have matches after that happened?
I think this was actually after our matches were over.
Okay.
But so people in Egypt are just like desperate for money, and our playing hall was real close to the airport, our hotel was really close to the airport, and the playing hall was probably like 40 minutes away. And our rooms, they didn't have clocks in them. So the way you have like a wake up call, like I didn't have a cell phone at the time. The way you got a wake up call was to talk to the people at the front desk, and they'll come and knock on your door in the morning. I had a 9:00 match against Germany, and we're all jet lagged. This is one of the first days, and I didn't hear the wake up call, like the little knock on the door. So it's like, I wake up and I'm like, it must be early. Like I didn't know what time it was. So I'm just kind of like taking a shower, taking my time. I go down to the lobby, and it's like, what time is it? It's like, it's 8:45. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you're supposed to wake me up. I have a match in 15 minutes. So I run upstairs, I get my bag, and I run back down, and there's a bus, but they run like every half hour. Something, I forget how often, but like every half hour. And I told the bus driver, like, hey, I have a match in like 15 minutes. I have to go. And he's like, no, we can't go yet. I was like, we have to go. Like, I was like, he's like, no, like my schedule, I don't leave for another 15 minutes. And I was like, if you leave right now, I'll give you $20. And I was like, if you get me there before 9, I'll give you another $20. And the guy, he floored it. Like he got me there in less than 15 minutes. I was there on time for my match, but Dang. It was like, I mean, it was a 45-minute bus ride that he got me there in 15 minutes. And I remember looking at the bus, and the speedometer didn't work. It just like, it was at 0 the whole time. Like whether he was going fast or stopped or whatever, like the speedometer didn't work. So I have no idea how fast he was going, but he was flying in this bus to get me there, and he got his $40. And
man,
so yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Do you remember how you did on the match?
I did pretty good. I didn't win. I lost 3-1. And I remember it wasn't against Oftrov, but I was talking to Oftrov afterward, and he was like giving me tips of how I should have won the match. I was like, aren't you supposed to be like for your
on the other side?
Yes, but he was pretty nice and pretty cool about it afterwards. So
cool.
Yeah, it was
cool.
It was crazy. That was a crazy trip for sure.
Yeah. So you also mentioned that you went overseas to train. Was that after all of this stuff?
It was, yeah. So when I was 18, right after my 18th birthday, I went to Sweden, and I trained in Stockholm at Sporvagen for a while. I think it was like 3 months or something.
Cool.
That was pretty good. That was really good training. The coach that was there, he like halfway through my stay, he got a job as the national team coach for Australia. So after I got back, I waited like a year or something. It was in the fall time. So the next fall, I was still in contact with him, and I went to Australia and trained with him. He was a really good coach. So I trained with him for another 3 or 4 months or something like that. And that was really fun too. So in Australia, I just like, I kind of, they have a league system there, but I was an alternate. So I was like, if someone wasn't going to show up or was out of town or sick or something, they would call me and say, hey, do you want to fill in for so-and-so position? And their league system is pretty good, where they have lots of different clubs in Melbourne and then a couple other clubs around the country, mostly on the East Coast. So I would train in like for one club, and then the next week I would train at a different club, and then a different club, and then a different club. So I stayed at a couple people's houses, and like just like I'm gonna be like, hey, I've never met you before, but it's okay if I stay at your house for a week and train and play, and then I'll move on to the next place the next week.
Yeah.
So basically in Australia, I would just buy like one-way flights from one city to the next, and I would just stay at lots of different people's houses and then just like check out the different cities around Australia, which was, it was super fun. And yeah, that was awesome. I think I was 19 at the time.
Dang.
So yeah, that was really fun.
So I'm not sure how homeschooling works. So when did you graduate homeschooling? How does that work?
So I got my GED, which is like a national test. It's, I mean, I don't want to talk down on it, but it's like the easiest test ever. Like, people like you, I don't really know how normal high schools work. I know you graduate, but I think it's got to be harder than the GED. The GED was kind of a joke.
You don't, so I went to a normal high school, and you don't take any test. You just don't get you don't get Fs, I guess. And that once you like reach your senior year and you take your classes, you just finish.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So when did you get the GED then?
I was 17 or 18, something like that. Yeah. It was one of those things like, do you want it? Like, we can schedule it. Or my parents were like, if you want, you can schedule it. Like, I don't know. I was doing fine in school. So my dad would assign work for me, like schoolwork, when I was traveling or out of town or at camps or whatever. And I would have to make sure I get it all done. So there's a lot of like personal accountability for that. Yeah. And I did fine. And then when I was actually 16, I actually started taking classes at university. I was like, some of my more advanced classes were at the university, and then my normal classes, and then my teachers at school, like at the college, was like, they worked with me really well. So they were really understanding, like, hey, I'm going to be trying, like, representing America in Egypt next week. Like, can I turn in my work late? Like, yeah, that's fine.
So we've talked about like Lily Zhang recently. She graduated college and is trying to do table tennis full time. I'm sure there was a point for you where you were like, well, do I go to college or do I go pro and play full time or something? Did you have that point, and what did you think about that?
So yeah, it was tough. So I tried to do both for a while. So I went to school in Indiana, which the school I went to as a teenager I transferred away from there when I wanted to like go to real school. So the school I went to as a teenager was like a liberal arts school where I wanted to get into tech stuff. So I went to Indiana Tech, which was better for my major, which is 2 hours away from home. So I would go to school, and then I scheduled my classes for Tuesday, Thursday. And then I'd go to school Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or stay in my dorm. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I would come home and I would train with Danny, and I would do more private lessons in that time, and group lessons both. So that was tough, but during those times, I actually played some of my best table tennis, and I won like the under 22 men's at nationals a couple times, which was really good. I finished really well in the men's team trials a couple times. I finished in the top 4, which was good. Top 5 once, top 4 once. So I was playing better than I had ever played, but then it was pretty much, there was one tournament where I finished fourth on the men's team, and at the team trials, and I don't want to get into this too much, but the top three are based on finish, and the fourth one is based on coaches' selection at the time. And the men's team coach had always picked the fourth one, and then it goes to the board or whatever, the USHT board, and they have to approve it.
Sure.
So, and it had always kind of just been like a rubber stamp, like the coach gets to pick whoever they want. But also they always had, every time that I knew, they would always pick the fourth spot. So the year I got fourth, Danny was the coach, which was awesome. Like, he's my hometown coach. Like, we'll get to go to the Worlds together. It's going to be great. So I made the team as fourth, and then I went to the board, and they said he couldn't select me because there's a conflict of interest. It's like, well, not really. So, but they made him pick somebody else. So he actually resigned over it. And that was like, if I can't even, like, I felt like I was getting screwed. I got totally screwed out of it. And that was like the last. I had already had some other issues with USA table tennis, but that was like the last straw. I was like, I don't really want to be a part of this anymore. So I stopped playing seriously for a while because of that. And then, I just started coaching, and I played in the collegiate stuff, which was really fun. Those are really fun tournaments. But yeah, that kind of, I didn't really have the same, like, which way am I going to go? Like, that was like you guys aren't going to let me play for the US when, like, I deserve it. And the person that they ended up selecting, I beat in nationals that year. So the trials are in February usually. The nationals are in December. I had beaten him in the under 21s to win the 21 and under. And then they ended up selecting him. It's like, this guy that I just beat is getting selected over me, and he didn't even go to the trials for whatever reason. And like, I just, like, the whole situation, like, it just ticked me off. So I didn't really have the same, like, the same reckoning as most players do going to college. I tried to do both, and I really wanted to play table tennis, but if USA table tennis isn't really going to support me, and there's no way to make money in table tennis as a player, it's like, what's the point? So I stopped doing it and started working and started coaching a lot more. I was still, at that time, I was coaching a little bit just to make some money. But after that point, I took a little bit of time off, and then I started coaching a lot. So
dang,
yeah, that was my transition.
That's a sad, not ending. But yeah, that's a sad thing.
It was good. Like, it was kind of just a kick in the pants. Like, this isn't for you kind of thing. So it just kind of it was like the last straw.
So, okay. So then you were just coaching. Was that when you were 19 or when you were 20?
I think I was 20. Yeah. So I was pretty much done with school or getting close to it. Yeah. And yeah.
So I guess we can jump a little bit. So then when you're still in Indiana, and then you graduated, and then I think that's when you came to Utah, right?
Yeah. So after my junior year of college, I had an internship in Utah. So I came out to Utah and worked for a company called Bluehost, which was really fun. The owner and, like, the CEO and a bunch of the guys there were all really into ping pong. So I got to play ping pong with some of the higher ups at the company, which is really fun. Yeah. And then they actually wanted me to stay, but I was like, no, I'm going to go finish school, and then I'll come back if you want me. Yeah. And so I went back. I finished my senior year in school. And I was actually not sure if I wanted to move back to Utah. My brother was working and living in Utah at the same company, Bluehost. And I was looking at a place in Illinois, Yahoo. There was a couple places in Texas, and then Utah was also on my list. So coming out of it, I called the CEO, the one I'd kind of made friends with through ping pong, and was like, hey, I'd like to come work for you at Bluehost, but I didn't really want to be doing tech support, which is basically what I was doing as an intern. So I was like, do you have any other positions open for me? That here's, like, my skill sets. So that he got me like a better position at the company, or got like I had a foot in the door for that.
Cool.
And yeah, so that was really the reason why I came back to Utah, was because I had a pretty good like starting position, doing some pretty technical things, and it was a pretty well paying job, at least as an entry, like first out of college. So that was awesome. And I've been here ever since. So
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, that is the saga of Joey Cochran. I think we covered everything. Is there anything we didn't mention?
No. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I played most of my career was as a junior. I stopped playing pretty much right after college because I was getting into my career, my real career, like everyone else, like most everyone else. But yeah, I got to be a part of the U.S. team and represent America, which was really cool. Awesome. Definitely one of the coolest things I've ever done. Is like there's something about like representing your country when you have your flag on your back, the USA on your back, representing America. So yeah, that's really cool. One of the worlds was in that I played in. One of the junior worlds was in Palo Alto, California. Cool. And so playing in front of like a home crowd was really cool. That was really neat.
Nice. Okay. Well, if you have any other questions for Joey, any follow-ups, make sure to tweet us or send us a message on Facebook or something.
Yeah.
Do you want to do a Joey's Coaching Corner?
So I think for a coaching corner this week or this month, just check out the YouTube channel. It's Table Tennis Junkie. I'm doing a lot of serving videos on there to try out. I have some unique serves that are really effective and really like they'll win points. So at least they have for me. So check them out.
You also get to see Joey's table tennis area at his house, which is
my basement area where I teach most of my lessons. The sound isn't as good as I want it to be, and the space isn't as big as I want it to be, but I think the content is what's most important for the videos, and there's a lot of really good tips in there. So even for like some beginners and for intermediate players, both, even for some advanced players that they might not always think about, it's good to hear some of the tips that I put in there, and they're kind of scattered throughout. So mostly I talk about the serve, but then it's like in my last video, I talk about the wrist motions and how they work with different strokes, and I kind of go on little tangents sometimes. So there's a lot of good content in there, so definitely check them out.
Cool. Awesome.
And subscribe, right? Like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe.
Hit that bell for notifications. Yeah, and my goal is to have 1,000 subscribers, right? That's where you can start monetizing it, and I'm at like 30, so I need about 970 more.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So for Weird World of Table Tennis today, one of the things that my wife has been doing to cope with self-isolation is rewatching Real Housewives episodes. That's like her guilty pleasure. And she was watching it the other day, and she was like, "Hey, come here." And she, when I came in, she played me a section of an episode where the Real Housewives of New York were at Spin New York having a table tennis tournament.
I love it. Spin New York is one of my favorites.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, wait a second. That's table tennis. And that Spin New York, I know that you've been there a few times. And then the MC who was kind of commentating the tournament looked really familiar. And it was Ryan Willard, who does most of the big US events. I think he MCs like the US Open and the Nationals. And he's kind of, I guess, a face or a voice of US table tennis. I thought that was kind of funny to see him there as well.
That's cool.
It was bad. Like you can imagine, like, you know, middle-aged ladies who've never played table tennis before. It wasn't It wasn't
pretty?
very. No, it wasn't very interesting.
Was there drama involved?
There actually wasn't. Surprisingly, no.
What the heck? Yeah, right.
I
With
think
Real
they
Housewives.
well, they kept their drama on the table. I guess they didn't really get into fights. Usually they go places and then they get into fights and then they get kicked out and stuff like that. But this seemed to be pretty. They had good. They had good sportsmanship. So. Yeah,
that's good.
If you want to check it out, it's season 5, episode 18. I tried to Google to find the episodes, and like I couldn't find it at all. I had to just like skip through the entire 5th season. It happened to be like the second to last episode. Thanks. So, yeah. Anyways, that's a pretty weird thing and a weird TV show for Weird World of Table Tennis.
Yeah, I've only seen one episode, just to like see what it's all about. I don't know. It's not for me. I might check out the new one that's coming out with the Salt Lake ones.
Yeah, they are doing a Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I think it should be interesting.
Yeah, definitely interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so that's basically our episode. Any last words?
No, just stay safe. Stay ponging. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
We'll keep going and keep updating you on anything new that's happening. But yeah, I think that's all for me. What about you?
Cool. Yeah. If any healthcare workers or Instacart shoppers are listening, thanks for what you do.
Yeah, for sure.
And everybody else, stay inside. And I guess Americans are supposed to wear masks now when you go out. So we went for a drive like a few days ago because we hadn't been like, I'm a little worried the cars are going to not start next time I start them. So we took the car out and I was just kind of amazed. Like I didn't see a single mask. I saw tons of people just walking around doing their normal thing, going into gas stations. And I was just like, man, it's not going to be good. It's already starting to pick up in Utah County, but I feel like it's going to be pretty bad considering that doesn't seem like people aren't taking it seriously here.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. So stay indoors and stay away from people and, I guess take care of yourselves. So, yeah. Thanks for listening, and we will see you, hear from you, talk to you next month.
Sounds good. I'll see ya. Table Tennis Talk is a monthly podcast by Joey Cochran and Ryan Lewis, edited by Ryan Lewis. Music on the podcast comes from Chillhop Records. Find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Send us questions on our Facebook page at Table Tennis Talk Podcast or on Twitter at TT Talk Podcast.